This program is brought to you by Paper, Tutors for All. The last couple of years haven't been easy for students. Kids are struggling. Schools and families are too. But what if there are new ways to help? What if tutoring was part of every student's experience? What if it was available 24/7 and free? When schools choose Paper, students get free 24/7 access to tutors. And if you're listening to this right now, there's a good chance your child's school already has Paper, or will be adding it very soon. Visit paper.co and find out more.
And we're back. See, that's how easy it is. You know, it's so hard to find that split in the edit. You know what I mean? Like, so what I do, I don't know if anybody else notices, but I create chapter lists based on our conversation. So after this, I go back and every time we change subjects, I create a witty comment about the change, and then maybe another witty comment about where it ended before we switch to another comment. And you can find our discussion about Russia and Ukraine on YouTube, by the way, with chapters, and it automatically creates chapters, so you can just click through and enjoy that, which is kind of cool. And yeah, what did you think of the State of the Union? We're gonna breeze past that really quick because that's like 2 weeks old by now. But
it's time now for something positive.
We might be headed to the promised land, speaking the truth and finding our external liberty once we internally liberate ourselves.
Problem can only be solved when there is a kind of coalition of conscience.
Because that is how it works. This is the beginning, it is not the finale, and that's why we're here, and that's why we rally.
We've got to be that creative minority.
Find a way to get in the way. I got in trouble. It was good trouble. It was necessary trouble.
Frankly, I know we've got to do something.
You know, the State of the Union address, basically my thought on the matter was it happened and there were some salient points, and then it turned into the cheerleader conference that it normally is. And, you know, it's one of my biggest problems with the State of the Union address is that there is no president who's going to step up on that podium and be like, yo, shit's fucked.
right.
Why? Because the moment that any president does that, our markets tank, guaranteed.
Oh, sure.
And so, like, you know, COVID was a shit's fucked situation. The war with, you know, between Russia and Ukraine, shit's fucked. You know, and you know, the State of the Union is precarious. Like, that's the real answer. Sure. You have one set of states that are looking to strip people of their rights. You have another set of states that are looking for absolute government control, and it's just all over the place. It's the State of the Union is like, yeah, we're still here. That's pretty much where I put it.
Yeah, I've avoided this statement because I don't want to insult you in any way, but states' rights is really taking a hit as a theory. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going real well right now.
Well, and that's and that's always the problem with any type of rights. It doesn't matter if it's states' rights. It doesn't matter if you're looking at rights between different countries.
Right. Somebody's always trying to get the advantage.
Somebody's always trying to interject their own personal politics into it, and that's the problem. Is that, you know, when it comes to partisanship, somebody always tries to interject their own personal feelings or beliefs or religions or lack of or whatever
to hurt their opponent, which hurts all of us at the same time.
Right. And so, you know, it doesn't surprise me that when you have people who see themselves as, you know, these devout Christians that are going to, you know, uphold the religious rule of law, and it's like, oh, fuck off.
My God, Jeffrey, I saw a TikTok and I thought of you instantly, and you're going to wonder why. It was a girl in front of a Trump 2024 flag, and the headline under it said, "Fuck your feelings." And it immediately made me think of, wow, these snowflakes just don't understand their own hypocrisy. So Biden announced ARPA, And I only remember that because of DARPA. DARPA is what creates military advantages for us. And ARPA is going to be a medical version of that. And I was wondering what was going to happen to Operation Warp Speed now. Like, could we keep funding that and then aim that directly at illnesses and solve them?
Like any operation, operations are meant to be a timeline based or goal based target.
Right.
And so, like, for example, to give you some great examples of what happens when you extend an operation, you either look like Vietnam, or you look like Afghanistan and Iraq, or you look like Ukraine.
Yeah, I get it.
The thing is that, if you're going to have a program that's meant for strategic, health and medical needs based on pandemics or what may have you.
Well, ARPA is going to be Alzheimer's, cancer, and diabetes. Curing those three in the next 50 years.
And to me, what that looks like, or what that means is that, you need to have a program that is going to be flexible enough that you can define what they're going to be taking on.
Right.
But you're not going, but it's not going to be something that once it meets its goal, that's the end of it.
Right.
Like, so for example, I think cancer, I think, diabetes, I think Alzheimer's, those are great.
Right.
Those are great targets. And I think that those are absolutely fantastic. But, I think this is one of those programs where it's like, this would be one where, once, like, for example, we would look at what to prioritize in any given year or any given, presidential term, for example.
Right.
And so, like, for right now, the primary focus has been COVID. And once we move off of that, it's like, okay, well, what can we work on next?
That's what I want to know. What can we hyper focus this on? Like, I have macular degeneration, right? I'm in remission, but boom, let's cure Stargard's. Let's cure arthritis. Let's point and focus this entire resource that we did to fix COVID and say, let's try and fix something so tiny, And
I think this is one of those things where there as long as there's a fundamental shift in how we treat and deal with health, that this will be an absolutely fantastic thing. So, for example, we talk a lot about preventative maintenance. Okay, well, there's only so much you can do to prevent cancer. There's only so much you can do to prevent Alzheimer's or diabetes, for example. But how do you actually treat it? How do you actually get to the point where you can take on the disease? Thanks to all of the funding that got put in place to fight COVID, you've got a bunch of organizations who are taking on a bunch of different diseases that affect, a lot of the U.S. population. You've got, they're working on Lyme disease. They're working on
breast cancer, prostate cancer. They're all over the place.
Leukemia, HIV, herpes, for example. I know that's one that they're working on. And to me, it's absolutely fantastic. Like, being able to take some of these viruses that we have never been able to,
hepatitis, right?
Yeah, some of these viruses that we've never been able to really fight,
right,
and give us a chance to actually fight them. It's great. Or cancer, for example, figuring out how, we can train the immune system to notice, a change in cells to go after, and fight specific diseases. It's absolutely
starving
fantastic.
them of oxygen. That's such a great idea. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
But I was wondering, like, should Warp Speed die, or should it just become something like ARPA, or be folded into ARPA, where there's something that just spends the resources on one easy, like what we're talking about. These are three of the major things that people suffer from, right? But what if we went to the other end? What if we clicked the list and went to the disease that's only affecting 10 people a year and knocked it out? And then went up the ladder as people are going down. What if we had something that just took care of the low-hanging fruit that we could solve,
Well, that's the question is it really low-hanging fruit? And I think that's one of the things you have to actually think about.
It is for some, for people suffering like Devi and their condition, to the my friend Luna, who suffers from other things, and Katie, who suffers from smell disorders. It's serious to them, but it could be low hanging fruit to other people, you know?
And that's the thing is that what you're relying on is that because there's so few numbers that it's low hanging fruit. And the reality is that if you have zero knowledge of what's causing the system, you're 10 years out of trying to figure out where you're going to find that. And
how are you going to study it if there's only 10 people with it?
Exactly. And that's the thing is it's not like say COVID, where we had you have this base foundation of disease and then you get a variant. It's like, okay, 99% of what we know is going to carry over. Whereas in some of these other cases, we might not know anything about it whatsoever. And so trying to figure out and find out how we're going to fight and treat that, it's like, I get it. There might only be 10 people that have this disease, but if you have absolutely zero knowledge of what causes it or how, that's a lot of unknowns in order to dump a bunch of funding in to try and find out something. Whereas, with some of these other things like cancer, like Alzheimer's, like any number of other things, we have a lot of base knowledge already. We're probably like 60 to 80% of the way there, but by that additional funding, we're able to knock out a huge chunk of needs and
I like that.
Get a bunch of knowledge in order to take that out.
Top off the research so people can move on to these other things. I like that.
And exactly. And that's where, when you look at where the money is going, if you have a bunch of money that's going towards cancer treatment, cancer research, and cancer this and cancer that, and cancer, and you finally figure out how to beat cancer, all of that money that's already being dumped into cancer from all of these other places will be able to be shifted to other priorities, period, end of story. Whereas if you shift a bunch of money towards something that we have nothing, we're still dealing with cancer or Alzheimer's or any number of diseases that we do know a lot about already. And so it's I like the idea, but unless it was something like, oh, hey, this is a bacteria that's causing that, we can figure out how to fight a bacteria, boom. But like genetic disorders are always really tough to figure out,
But we're on a new prophysis for that with this mRNA possibilities, and I like
potentially
like sickle cell is almost a thing of the past thanks to DNA replacement therapy. You know what I mean? That's so cool.
And that's just as the technology expands and as the technology improves, there's going to be a lot of these things that we're going to be able to take on and potentially either lessen or cure, and that's fantastic, but it's still 15, 20 years out.
Some of them are right here, right? Like
some of them, like HIV is in its first round tests.
But the protein that, like the HIV suitcase, actually fits a protein that will eat the protein that fills the brain and causes dementia or Alzheimer's. Like these are right around the corner. I think that's really exciting. So I kind of like the idea. I like the idea of having instead of investing militarily like that, like we were talking about, if we're at peace, we don't need this military budget. If we could move that into medical research, because I think America is a research powerhouse. I think that's what we should be known for, advancements in everything. That's what we are. We're a collection of the best and brightest. We have the best and brightest schools. We should work with our allies around the world to bring them here and create things like that. So I like ARPA.
I don't disagree with that. And it's absolutely fantastic that you've had this level of funding and you've had this ability to dig into some of these major problems. Like I'm stoked for the fact that we've cured the fourth person of HIV, and we're testing a vaccine to see how that's going to, like, that in and of itself is fantastic. And especially like if what we can end up doing is do something like monoclonal antibodies, like what we did for coronavirus, but create monoclonal antibodies that then fight HIV. That would in and of itself would be wild and fantastic.
Right. I think that's so cool that we're doing that. And what we're not doing is we're not stealing the scientists like we used to. All of our advancements were from Russian scientists or German scientists, right? So I think we got to reach out right now to Russian scientists and say, hey, some of the best and brightest minds in Russia developing technologies under fear of oppression and death, come here, live in democracy. You can create some amazing things that'll benefit the world. And it won't be used for evil. You
Can
know
we
what I mean?
can we just say that when they finally come up with the breast cancer vaccine, can the slogan be "It's the tits"?
It's the tits. Shit's the tits.
It's the tits. The breast cancer vaccine. It's the tits.
Right. I just think that we're all fighting for funding. Like the breast cancer people, the prostate cancer people, the lung cancer people, St. Jude's. Like we're all fighting for funding, and that kind of sucks. It kind of splits all of the funding. All these people want to donate. I want to donate to St. Jude's because they helped me, but I don't donate to, I don't even know, Susan G. Komen. Wow, I got that one, and it's like, let's just focus. Let's just focus that ray on solutions. All right.
And I think that's where we have a fantastic ability to, like our base understanding of cancer is improving. And
Yeah.
as we learn, how these different cancers work, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, 90% we'll have 90% of the knowledge, and then it's just the additional 10% for figuring out each of these different, variants of cancer, essentially.
And it'll come down to a vaccine. Yeah,
exactly. And that's what it boils down to is that, because of the investment in technology, you're going to see a technological leap forward in treating a lot of this stuff. And what might have taken us another 10 or 15 years might only take us 5 now, just because we've had that great technological leap forward. And once our time is done with having to fuck around with COVID, you're going to have a lot more space in order to take on some of this stuff. This one was one of those ones where it got a lot of people sick. It fucked over our hospitals. It killed a lot of people, and we had to address it now. Now it's time to move on to the, now we're getting close to the point where we can move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
But I mean, there was bubonic plague that took out millions. There was the Spanish flu that took out millions. History will see COVID as that, as just that destruction of life. It's like a balancing of life that happens, and I hate it. Every 100 years, millions of people are going to die. So get ready, 3,000.
More like 2,100.
21. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Every 100 years.
Every 100.
I'm
bad at math.
I don't know what we had. Smallpox. Well, we had polio, and polio didn't really kill a whole lot of people, but it really did. Smallpox was pretty fucking gnarly. Smallpox, that one royally got people. And then the bubonic plague had, 3 different waves that went through Europe.
But that decimated Romania. So when you were talking about Romania in the last episode, I was like, oh man, because and that just sprung up their witches. Now Romania is full of witches trying to defend themselves from a plague that's been gone for 100 years. Fucking Romania, I want to go there so bad.
Romania would be a wild trip. I really just want to spend 3 months in Europe and go visit all of these places. Dreams.
Yeah. So Biden did bring up something that was important to me, and it was the 23 million Americans that are in treatment right now for drug abuse, and how he wants to help that and acknowledge that, because he believes in it. He believes in substance abuse prevention, unlike Marco Rubio, who wants to get rid of funding for it.
Easy.
Yeah, that was a slam dunk, right? But these are the 4 things he thinks he can work on a bipartisan basis.
Number 1, legalize marijuana. Period. End of story.
Legalize it.
There's already data from states that have legalized it that opioid usage has decreased significantly.
Right.
Period. End of story.
Just do it.
They're allow the research to take place so that way they can figure out how to breed out the stuff that eats holes in your brain.
Right.
Period. That'll the answer to a problem, sure, it creates it's a different problem, but it's a lot less severe problem, number 1. And number 2, you let the science take place, that problem will get fixed. 2, period. End of story.
Boom.
It's like anything else, smoking a bunch of shit is not necessarily a great thing for you. It never has been, it never will be. But when you're looking at smoking weed versus fucking fentanyl, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry.
Oh yeah, and what weed has done for oh my gosh, brain disorders is amazing. My friend, his daughter had 286 seizures a day, and she's down to 1 or 2 a month. and that's a toddler that's been
Mhm.
given marijuana therapies. I'm not quite sure how they give it to her, but
So it's a CBD therapy, I think is what it
it's
is.
just, it's incredible to think that that's
People
Tori.
who
I
have
love Tori.
people who've had things like I
It
want to
helps
say
with
it's
epilepsy,
Parkinson's.
right?
I want to say it's Parkinson's, but I don't think it's Parkinson's. But basically, like a shaking
Cerebral
disorder.
palsy,
Yeah,
epilepsy. Yeah, these
people
things.
are using it for CBD. They've found that they're not having issues. I mean, besides the pain management stuff. I mean, pain management. That side of it is fantastic, and I can,
Agreed.
whether you're using rubs or whether you're using edibles, like it works, period, in a story. you
Mhm.
know does that mean that it's as effective as it could be? No, but let me tell you something, it's a lot more effective than me eating fucking 5 ibuprofen a night. uh
Yeah. You want to know
and
what causes constipation? 5 ibuprofen a night.
you want to know what fucking destroys your kidneys and liver? five
Yeah.
ibuprofen a night. And at
Right.
my worst, I was taking like 5 ibuprofen like 3 or 4 times a day. Jesus fucking
Wow.
Christ.
You
And
were
now
causing
maybe
more pain than you were in, you know?
not really, because I was in a
No,
lot of pain.
but it wasn't working. The ibuprofen wasn't working.
Well, it was working, but it was also doing damage to shit. So
Yeah.
that's one of those things where it's like you have, the trade-off is like, yeah, do I have to use CBD? Yeah. But does that mean that I'm not destroying my kidney or my liver? Also, yeah.
Yeah. He also brought up mental health, that he
Hmm.
wants to expand on mental health. And I keep thinking to myself, and this is in the realm of police officers, we're going to ask a bunch of people to en masse become something that they're not all qualified to do, you know? And like, so we're going to get a range of therapists, but we're not creating new therapists, right? In
Hmm.
masses like they were calling on. For 4 years, it's been take care of your mental health. Well, who are you going to turn to? That person that's overstaffed or overbooked? You know what I mean? The person that doesn't have time for you because we don't have enough therapists. And the other thing is those apps that are jumping on the online therapy thing for a price. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know the name of you, but if you're charging people, then you are not a resource for everybody, because there's people that can't afford it. And if you don't have a sliding scale on the price ranges, then yeah, you're not helping anybody. You're just helping people with the means to get the help. So that
Yep.
bugs me. I'd like to see an app that could somebody in jail, or somebody that's homeless, or somebody that's institutionalized in another manner for other indignities could reach
Hmm.
out and find, like, because even if you're institutionalized and you have access to random therapy, you don't have a second opinion like everybody says you should always get. And so I
Right.
wish there was an independent an ability for everyone to just get that verification or knowledge or information. But we don't
Well,
have therapists en masse to do that, you
well,
know?
what it boils down to is that becoming a therapist is an expensive venture, number one.
Of course, yeah.
And then once you are a therapist, like any other number of doctors, being licensed is expensive.
Right.
And so,
And the paperwork is overwhelming.
once again, you have to try and create vectors and mechanisms to either attract people to come into the country to do those things, which
Right.
poses a problem in and of itself. Language barriers, especially when it comes to mental health, is always tough.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's ineffective. I mean, therapy is therapy if they are all learn the same thing. It's just, trying to make sure that you're communicating with the person that you're trying to communicate with and doing so effectively.
If you're comfortable with them, right?
I don't care who my therapist is, as long as I can, as long as we're able to work together, then perfect. That's all you need.
That's right. That's right. But I'll tell you, I lean towards females. I'm not going to tell my problems to another man. Like, to me, I don't like it. Men to me are dismissive of other men. Like, suck it up, you're a man. You know what I mean? So I prefer women, because women are more nurturing and they tell me what to do and then I listen. Whereas if a man tells me what to do, I'm going to be like, who the fuck are you? So, but that's me
Me, like,
personally.
I've had great male doctors, I've had great female doctors. You know, I will say that I've had more luck with women doctors than I've had with male doctors. Um, But that's not to say that I haven't had quality from both. And really, it's,
Sure.
you know, I'm also one of those people, you know, where it's like, well, if I can't choose, as long as whoever I'm getting is good, I don't really care.
So you can join like a group and just see the next person on the list.
Yeah. So,
I can do
so
that
from,
too.
so, you know, to me, it's one of those things where, you know, I try to make it a point where it's like, if, you know, like I will pick somebody and if they work out, great. If they don't, well, I'll find somebody else. If it happens to be a dude, great. If it happens to be a chick, great. If it happened to be somebody who was trans, also great. I don't give a shit. As
Oh, I
long
don't
as
care. Yeah,
as
no.
long as the person that I'm going to sit down and work with is able to help me and I can build a bond with them in order to work on my issues.
You know, part of my realization that everybody is everybody. I had heart palpitations and I had to go to the emergency room, right? And they were going to give me an EKG and this girl was helping me and I was just like in and out of it. But I opened my eyes and it was this beautiful, just transgender person, Star. There was earrings and you know that just amazing. And I just looked up and I was like, "Thank you, you're so beautiful to me," you know. And we were good friends after that. Actually, we talked,
Mhm.
we texted because I did. They said they had gotten so much hatred that patients have actually requested to not be seen by them, and it made me feel so good that my instinct, my initial thought was, "Oh, thank you," and not, "Oh
I
no,"
think that's
you know.
I think it's fantastic if
Yeah.
someone like Star is number one,
Yes.
brave enough to go into that field. Number two,
Yes.
keeps themselves going in that field despite the amount of discomfort and hatred that is going to be directed towards them.
Yeah.
Like, you know, shout out to you, Star.
We're a new generation of people advocating for rights that never were advocated for before. Like there's always been transgender people. It's just they've had the resources to do something about that.
Mhm.
And like they've been in the shadows. The same with disabled people. I keep telling people like 40 years ago we were in institutions. We were shipped away. So we're the first generation to speak on these things and we're not all going to get it right all the time, you
Well,
know.
and
But I
like,
love the fact that there's so many people trying, so many people
oh,
that are so
absolutely.
nervously saying they like, you know, they want
Right.
to get it right. And I love that. I love that.
You know, and that's the thing is like I don't give a shit who the person is that's treating me as long as they're,
Yeah.
you know, a board certified doctor or nurse or whatever have you. If
Right.
they're certified, then who the fuck cares? You know, it's not my business. My only concern is whether or not I can build a connection with someone
Hmm.
who's treating me in any way,
Right.
shape, or form. It's like I've had nurses that, you know, I've had, you know, cis women nurses who've just been straight dismissive of me.
Right.
I've had cis male that have been straight dismissive of me. I don't really care is if I've got somebody who's listening to me and they're working with me to find a solution.
Right.
I don't care who they are. That's and especially if they're certified. I like what am I going to do? No, say no, you're not certified despite the fact that there they are. You can
Yeah.
look them up.
They're not going to wipe transgender on your arm when they're drawing blood. You know
Well,
what I
but
mean?
what if I catch the gay?
Well,
No.
then you're lucky and you'll have a new perspective on life. You know what I mean? Like
That's the
what I looked up at, what I instantly saw was I felt like I was struggling, and I looked up and saw somebody that I knew struggled. Like that before we even talked, the first thing I looked up with and I saw Star and I was like, "Oh, you haven't had it easy either." And that put me at ease that I wasn't being judged for my
Mhm.
situation. And I liked that in the moment, you know. But I'm also very passive about people I take at face value. You are what you tell me you are, and you get to be anything you want to be when you're around me. Like even if you're a giant dick to other people, you get to be who you are around me to me. I'll judge you on how you are around me, you know.
Mhm. I'm the same person around you as around Devi as around anybody else. In fact, you know,
I believe it.
one of the things that people constantly comment on is, you know, people will see the way that the two of us will interact with each other out in public, and then, you know, they'll come over and they're expecting some, you know, lovey-dovey couple, and we're still giving
Right.
each other the same amount of shit. And they're like, "Oh God, you guys act this way at home?" Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
Yep. It's the same regardless. So, to me, like, the more people that we get into healthcare roles, regardless of who they are, it's going to be unfortunate that there's going to be people that will turn away STAR because they don't like what they see.
Right.
It's no different than turning away a nurse because they're not pretty enough for you, a doctor because they're not pretty enough for you.
Right.
Motherfucker, are you saying you'd rather die because your eyes don't get eye candy? Fuck you.
But the weird thing is you also don't know the finished product. And I don't know how to say that in another way. If you're being seen by somebody, a nurse or a nurse practitioner or a doctor, they could be transgender in the final state of their transition, and you would never know. You know what I mean? That nurse isn't going to walk in and be like, "Hey, I was transgender 10 years ago, but now,"
If you or anyone you know faces the realities of sickle cell, answers and support are available. Visit sicklecellspeaks.com and follow us on social media. You'll discover a community of those who understand and live with sickle cell. The right information can change everything.
And that's the thing is, like, it doesn't, to me, like, I don't even care whether or not someone's passing or not. It doesn't matter. And I think that's, that whole passing privilege is a whole nother discussion that I can't even begin to step in. That's for people smarter than me, who know more about this than me, who are more willing to dig into that than I am, simply because I just, I don't have the wherewithal to discuss that. But what it boils down to is that I don't, we have to accept people for the certification that they have, for the experience that they have, for the training that they have. And it doesn't matter whether or not you think, this person is going to be qualified because of X, Y, and Z. If they're certified in your state, then they're certified, period, end of story. And, your only concern should be whether or not they work well with you as a provider-patient relationship. When we look at why that is so important, one of the issues that, many men have had, many women have had, many non-binary trans people, gay people have had is that they don't feel like they are being heard when they're trying to get care. And if there's a group of people out there that I'm going to trust to be able to hear that cry for help, it's going to be somebody who's been crying for help, who had cried for help themselves, got it, and now are able to help others.
I talked to Luna about the treatment she got when she was having her pregnancies and issues with it. And she said she was diminished just as being a Black woman with a mental disability at the time, and it's
right.
Like, it's hard. And it's hard, I want to say, for like the nursing staff, and especially in ERs or in treatment centers, they get a lot of people that are very angry about being there. You know what I mean? I don't know why people are like, I need help. I hate you for giving it to me. But that's how it is. People in their crisis moment are just acting on adrenaline and instinct. And that's that lizard brain that I was talking about, the bear brain that we have in our bodies that says fight or flight. And both of those look like the same to me.
Yeah.
Man. So Congress is finally setting it up, dude. They're doing a discussion about banning lawmakers from trading stocks. And it
that
looks
needed
like
to happen.
It looks like the meeting is going to be March 9th. Now, this is Thursday. I don't know what date that would be. It might have already happened. But I think this is really neat. They're talking about fixing the penalties for non-disclosure and eliminating it. The one bill is for Congress, and then there's another bill, I'm trying to look in my notes, that is Congress and spouses of Congress. And that just means putting it in a blind trust or not trading for the length of your term, which I think is cool.
Like, it's not that I don't think that Congress members should have
investments.
Investments. I just don't think that they, as long as they're a member of Congress, they should be the ones in control of their investments or be able to communicate about their investments. Like, that's bullshit. If you're going to do that kind of shit, then you need to give all of us that heads up and say, hey, dump this stock, you fucking
Agreed.
pricks.
Agreed. I mean, like Nancy Pelosi was like, "Hey, we're gonna start making these microchips in Ohio," and I was like, "Oh yeah, so you already bought stock in this stuff, right?" Like,
Right, exactly.
and that's where we're at now. You can't promote anything good. Every bill comes with something that they've already invested in, right? Let's
Exactly.
invest in green technologies. Why? Because you just invested in Shell because they're about to go into it. That's
Right.
my problem. And yeah, it creates a false stock market too, by the way. And that's why we had infrastructure week for 4 years every week, is because it jacked up the gravel stock that Elaine Chao, Mitch McConnell's wife, was an investor in. And
Well,
sucks.
and remember when we had the GameStop,
Right.
stock market incident. It wasn't that people were fucking pissed about, the fact that they were pissed that a bunch of fucking internet nerds figured out what the game was, and they were able to
Right.
manipulate it in their favor for a change.
I like it. Be a capitalist.
Exactly. And then you had a bunch of fucking senators go, oh well, we got to fix this. Why? Because it tanked your
Why?
shit that
Did
you're
it?
investing in.
Did
Fuck
it?
you.
Who was investing in GameStop? Because didn't it just rise as they did that? It didn't hurt me that they did that. Did it hurt people investing in other things?
Well, and that's just it. Is that it's the fucking meme stock of it all was great and wonderful, and it was hilarious, and I enjoyed it. But at the same time, too, it's like the fact that these politicians were pissed is that they weren't pissed that this was happening. They were pissed that it could happen to them, and you could go in and fuck up their value.
Well, because the whoever owned the GameStop had to back up the price, right? So they had to have, like, I remember that app I use. I can't remember the app, but they had to come up with money to back the trades that were going on with GameStop, and that was taking a lot of their resources away.
Was it Robinhood?
Robinhood, the Robinhood app. Actually, they eventually said we're not going to cover GameStop transfers because we can't afford to back the price of it. So I think that was the real issue. But it was, I mean, you're manipulating the system that other people are manipulating. Good for you, GameStop people. I hope you made a lot of money.
Right.
But I don't think they should. And I don't think people in power should be able to do that. I think they can have a mutual fund and put it in a blind sort of trust where it's being traded, and trust somebody to do that. And even once in a while be like, hey, what am I doing? Do you see any diversification in the future? But I don't think they should be able to use I think that the mutual fund coordinator should report it if they're like, hey, by the way, do this. I think they should be reported.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Oh, defund the police, by the way. Don't defund the police. Wait, don't defund the police. I can't remember my attention span. Joe Biden said something about defunding the police.
Well, Biden was never for defunding the police.
Yeah, I know. It's a refund. It's a refund.
Refund the wait.
Well, I just think it's funny that one protester in a George Floyd protest shouted defund the police, and Republicans were like, that's what we're going to get them on. And ever since then, it's just stuck to every Democrat, even though no Democrat ever said it.
Very few have, actually. And
right. Well, there's some radical people that wanted it burned to the ground and built back up. They weren't talking about getting rid of police officers, but they wanted to get rid of the system because there's systemic institutional issues with it. So I can see that. Some people just want to scrap it and start over. Other people want to fix what's there.
And that's what happened is that, you saw people scrap, a large segment of their police, force. And now they're having to hire it back on because they didn't actually have the resources in place that they needed.
Right.
They didn't have the laws in place that they needed. They didn't have jack shit in place that they needed. Like, your police force needed to be continued at the same level, and you needed to hire on your resources, your mental health officers and things like that. Get them up to speed, get them moving, and then as crime decreased, then you could look at taking those officers and doing other things with them.
Yeah, making more citizen panels and coordination with police and stuff like yeah. It's just like the mental health. It's the same with police officers. We need 1 million police officers. Where are they? At some point, you're going to degrade the quality of human that's applying for the job. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's my problem. We're not looking for quality, we're looking for quantity, and that's a real issue. We need those mental health responders, but who is going to go to police training and then further their education into mental health training to go back to live on the streets and solve domestic violence issues? Nobody wants to spend their life in the shittiest moments of other people's lives, you know?
Very few people people have the ability to do that, and hats off to them.
Yeah, but we need those people. We need to nurture those people. And I don't see any educational system in the making that's prepared to do that and to make them on a large scale. And by the way, when it comes to these mental health responders, they don't need to be Anglo-white, right? Like this is a great position for legal immigrants to come in and have a role at this stuff. That would be great. If we could have legal immigrants coming in to break up illegal issues without sending the people to ICE, that would be great to me, because ICE is horrible. I'm not saying you need to disband the border. I believe you should. I don't believe you should get rid of the officials on the border, but you need to quality those people too. Like they're bad. They abuse a system that's already ripe to abuse. So fuck you. Sorry. I'm really upset about immigration. That's the one thing. So Joe Biden, the one thing, geez, it took me a half an hour to get to this. His stance on immigration just made me sick. Like I literally almost barfed, because I hate the Republican stance on immigration. So I have to turn to the Democratic response, which is constantly compromising with the Republican stance to demonize migrants. That's bullshit. Like, we don't need to secure our border by diminishing the people that are trying to flee death and destruction. We don't need to torture kids for profit. We don't need to leave people languishing on the other side of the border so we can say it's secured. Fuck you. You know, like Poland is letting millions of Ukrainians in because there's a conflict next door. We have like fucking Haiti had this volcano, this earthquake, this tsunami hit it, and we're like, no, fuck you. It just bugs me that we can't help people in need because, well, we want to compromise on border security. Just pisses me off. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, but that's what my stance is.
I mean, like the difference between, Ukraine and all these other things is people expect Ukraine to get solved. Like, people expect that Russia's going to go away, Ukrainians will go back to Ukraine. That's the real answer.
Right.
Whether or not that happens, who knows? That's a grand question. But the thing, like, where you have, a population on the southern border who's, trying to escape, either corrupt law or, cartels, it's like, unless you have a plan to fix those, that problem is still going to continue. And we've talked about that time and time again. You have to actually fix the root cause of the problem.
Yeah.
You don't want people just showing up at your border, period, end of story. And I don't know that there's much else to say on that one.
No, it's gross. I mean, sorry, both sides, shame on you. It's gross. So anyway, I saw a thread. Sorry, that was an add-in, by the way. If you look at my note, it isn't even in there, but it was something I was really pissed about. So First Draft News has this thing because they're talking about there's a rise in misinformation, Jeffrey, when it comes to the Ukraine storytelling on social media, right? And we wanted I wanted to address that because I think we've talked about misinformation and disinformation before, and they have some tips, and I wanted to get your opinion on it, right? So first and foremost, be wary of the difference between misinformation and disinformation. And I think what they say, it's intent.
Yep.
Okay, good. Because I don't quite understand how to describe that. I'm just reading.
Misinformation is like, you get something wrong on accident, and then it just spreads.
Okay.
Disinformation is you were intentionally spreading false information
using specific language.
Like, so it's like I missed the mark.
Gotcha.
Whereas disinformation is like I'm legitimately, trying to spread falsehoods.
Okay. And
We can think of propaganda as disinformation. Propaganda is intentionally, the spread of false narrative and news in order to, do any number of things.
right.
Whereas, like misinformation, for example, would be like, the Ukrainians shot down, an Su-35, and it's like, no, they didn't shoot down an Su-35, they shot down an Su-25.
Right. Okay. And like disinformation is we shot down a unicorn.
Disinformation would be that,
We shot down 20
there
of
are
them.
no supply issues with the Russian army.
Right.
that we are strategically parked because this is what we plan to do.
That's
And
so
the
hilarious.
Ukrainians, or even and here's the other thing too is that there's been plenty of Ukrainian propaganda too. And that's the real threat about wartime is that nobody's going to put out information saying, yeah, we're getting our ass handed to us here. Why? Because you don't want to fuck up morale. But at the same time, too, like you have to take some of this news with a grain of salt. And that's where you have some significant issues. Like, Western reporters, like right now you've got like the Mirror, for example, that's one, or the Daily Mail, or even some U.S. news sources that are copying, pasting stuff out of, say Pravda, which is
Right.
one of Ukraine's papers. And some of that, I'm like, I could really use some third-party verification on that, and you never get it.
Right.
And that's the issue, is you're not getting any sort of verification that says, yeah, we've reached out to independent sources and we've confirmed, or we've seen this video and we've confirmed the authenticity of it. And that's the issue at hand is that misinformation and disinformation, sometimes the authenticity is very hard to confirm. Misinformation is usually just somebody screwed something up.
Right.
But with disinformation, it is intentional that you're unable to confirm some of these claims. And then oftentimes there's a nugget of truth to them. Like, for example,
there's always a nugget of truth.
If a good propaganda will always have a nugget of truth to it, and sometimes good propaganda will mostly be based on the truth. I mean, the reality is that the Ukrainians are taking down a lot of fucking Russian armor and a lot of Russian aircraft. To what extent that's remain to be confirmed, but that's the real issue is that you've got Russia saying, oh, we've only lost this much, and you've got Ukraine saying, oh, well, we've taken out X, Y, and Z amount, and it's maybe somewhere in the middle, maybe closer towards Ukraine's side, maybe not. Maybe. And it's hard to say without having some type of asset being able to confirm that. And so unless you're getting independent reports from different journalists inside of Ukraine that are embedded with a lot of these different soldiers,
sure,
it's hard to say.
Not really a fact that's relevant. Like, if you can't trust that fact, it's one you can let go. It doesn't really matter how many people on either side have died when you can see the destruction going on. And misinformation to me is Volodymyr Zelensky being excited about being anxious and excitable and having an adrenaline and saying, it's crazy, and somebody else being rational about the conversation. His misinformation is exaggeration through exhilaration. Is there a bad word for that? He's scared to death, and he's shouting. And sometimes people that are scared say things that exaggerate the true facts, but it's real to them because he's being bombed, he's being targeted, he's going to die if they find him.
I mean, and that's just it, and that's, you have to remember, like, intent. It really boils down to intent.
Yeah.
His intent might not be to lie to us, but what has been given to us isn't exactly true. Whereas, disinformation is Russia, Putin saying that it's a special military operation and it's a full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
And they're going after Nazis. What the fuck? That's so weird.
Yeah, going after Nazis in a country that's led by a Jew.
And again, is Vladimir Putin lying or not? He's obviously lying because he's either stupid and thinks there's Nazis in Ukraine, or he's smart and he's lying, right? It's one of the two. And
Well,
either
and
one, he's full of shit about it.
And when you control the narrative within your own country, it makes
Oh
it
my
pretty
God,
clear which it
yeah.
is.
They are locking down. And how do you explain that? Oh, we're just locking down because we're doing the right thing. That doesn't make sense. Right? Are Russians like, wait, oh, okay, we're doing a great job over there, and that's why you don't want to tell us? Like, why is independent news shutting down? Because it's propaganda that they can't go along with. Russia told them either quit or stop using the word war or invasion.
Right. And so that's what it boils down to that's where the problem is.
And there's another one, and the second is visual information, right? And that's a big thing these days. And have you heard about that? Like this video technology that can actually fake video fakes?
Deep fakes.
Deep fakes, yeah. So there's deep fakes, and then there's these pictures being put out with layers on them, and there's ways to look to check their authenticity. But have you seen this stuff, like this?
I've seen plenty of deep fakes. There's a lot of deep fakes out there. You look at some of the ones that were happening, even just during our election cycle.
Oh yeah.
Where the Republicans were putting out like videos of, that showed Pelosi slowed down and it looked like she was slurring her words.
It was
that's
so obvious though.
I mean, and that's the thing is like, look, do I like Pelosi? No, but I don't like the fact that you're lying about what's happening.
Right. Did you see the Tom Cruise Paris Hilton video?
Mm-mm.
Oh, that's where the deep fake conversation came in, because she posted a video eating breakfast with Tom Cruise and nobody could tell that it wasn't Tom Cruise. That it was just a fake. And then it was like, wow. And there's a couple on YouTube, a couple Russians, right? Or Russian animated individuals that are spreading propaganda, and then they were caught as like fakes because she had two different earrings on. It was like two different faces or something they put together. Just so weird, right? Public Access America.
It's always funny because like, especially because as libertarians, we get a ton of shit, even amongst other libertarians.
I think political philosophy is a lot like religion, and where there's moments you have to go on faith and trust what somebody else is saying.
The main focus is just like less dependence on the government, because, well, we've seen how that's gone.
And you don't have to do that if you think about it in a human way.
More dependence on connections with each other.
But you can always bring it back to what would one human do for another? What would 100 do for 100?
People looking out for people.
Find Public Access America anywhere you find your favorite podcast every Sunday and Thursday. And join the chat on YouTube at Public Access America every Sunday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Communities looking out for community.
Public Access America. History in the making, making history in the making, in the making, in the making, in the making, in the making.
Deepfakes are going to be a problem.
Yeah.
It's a new part of the disinformation tactic.
Right.
You're going to have, as CGI has gotten insanely realistic, and depending on how much information you have on a person, you can create a pretty damn lifelike looking CGI model.
Right.
And depending on your ability to synthesize somebody's voice, you're going to have the ability to make this recording sound like somebody that you might know and love.
Right.
I mean, you've even got people who are such amazing voice actors that they could literally sound exactly like a person that you're expecting to be talking to, and it's not them.
Right. So I don't know how to do this, and I'm going to give you a second if you can. Running reverse image searches, what is that? Like, what is that?
So reverse image searches, there's a couple of different ways that you can do this.
I just don't know what it is. Like, I've never even done it.
So there's I want to say there's one called TinEye, and then there's one and then Google does reverse image search. And essentially what you do is you download an image, and then you go into Google or this other program, and it'll show you when it was first uploaded. You can look this up on how to do this. It's actually pretty interesting. But there's a couple of different ways that you can match up these images. So for example, it'll look at things like metadata, for example. So it'll look at, when the image was first created. If the image has been passed down a bunch of times, it'll look to see what the metadata is. The quality of the image might suck, but it'll sit down and go, okay, yeah, this image was first uploaded in 2013, for example. Or what it'll do is it'll scan the photo. Google Lens is amazing at this, and it'll look up any number of different parts of the photo. Like I use Google Lens, for example, for identifying plants, if there's a plant that I'm not sure of. But what it can do is it can also take parts of a photograph and go, okay, the first time that we saw this was 2012 or something like that. And so reverse image searches can go a couple of different ways. There's different bots out there that can help you with this. But the point is to figure out when an image was first uploaded, and whether it be part or the whole. And as automation technology improves, you're going to be able to see, oh, hey, this image, this part of the image was first uploaded in 2012. This part of the image was first uploaded in 2013. This whole image was first uploaded in 2021. And that's where reverse image searches come in handy. Like, especially as you're trying to backtrack who some of these individuals are.
And it suggests this post, I'm going to leave a link to it. There's some suggestions that I don't recommend, and other things. They want you to archive this stuff. They want you to report it. They want you to share links. And I don't believe in all that kind of stuff, but I want people to at least recognize what imposters are. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's good. And because we do care about what we're seeing. We want to believe our own eyes. And so I like the idea of giving somebody information on how to at least check that basic stuff, right? And
Yep.
What is it? They have what is this? Red Eye? Extension Red Eye is one of the things they recommend.
Red Eye. Yep.
Okay. And then there's imposter accounts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's fake people. And so I wanted to give some information at least about how to quickly just go through and see some of the things that you can see to see if they're an imposter. And the first one here is to check primary sources. So when they do have a post, check the sources within the post to see if the sources are valid. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the next one, are they on other social sites? Are they on other social media? Do they have social media linked to that account? And that way you can get a broader perspective on who they are. I think we'd both agree with that. Do they use the same handle on every platform that they have? I try and keep mine homogenous, but a lot of people don't do that if they're personal people. You know what I mean?
Right. And really, like especially what it boils down to is sometimes you'll have Reddit, for example, to post in certain subreddits, you have to have a minimum karma amount. So you'll have relatively young accounts that post some pretty, benign things.
Oh, okay.
Not even, they'll post some benign things to get their karma count up, and then they'll move into posting other things, and it's the only the posts that you start to see is oh yeah, okay, that's a bot clearly, or that's part of somebody's troll farm or whatever.
Right.
But as you start to see sites get cut off, you start to see less and less of that.
Right. Do you have wait, let's just get through this first. Contact information. You can look for contact information from them, but I'll tell you that in this day and age, I don't put contact information on my stuff, because it'll get hacked. It'll get attacked by trolls. So I don't know. You can check their contact information if they're a business or a journalist or something. There might be other ways to verify, but I would, at that point, if you have a question about it, I just well,
and that's one of those things. Let's say that they have an address listed in Russia. What are you going to do? Are you actually going to go to Russia and be like, yo,
right.
knock, 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 motherfucker? Are you actually this person?
Right. But if it's an account telling you vaccines are bad and you look and you see it has an address in Russia, at least there's a manipulation there,
Which case, That's a whole nother issue at hand is whether or not you can even, for example, sometimes you can actually do IP lookups on certain things, and that'll tell you where it's being posted from. It's a little bit more difficult to do. It's a much more advanced technique, but a lot of the times what you'll see is, especially sites like Reddit, they can kind of break down where some of these posts are coming from, and they shut down a lot of bots.
Cool. I always think of mail, like when I get a strange email, I click on the above name to see where the email is, right? Because I get stuff like, hey, Amazon bill, and then I look and it's like Joe Schmo 3421@gmail.com, and I'm like,
right.
aha.
I think one of the important things that people are going to need to recognize is that you're probably going to need to update some passwords here pretty soon. Like especially if you're used to having your passwords, set it and forget it.
Right.
There are a lot of leaked email addresses and things like that. And so as much of a pain in the ass as it is, you're going to have to go in and update some of these accounts. So that way you can make sure that, your whatever is out there is going to be old, and they're not going to be able to use your information to access it. So in times like this, I can't stress enough, make sure that you're looking out for your own information security.
Yeah, I spend my mornings going through my emails and blocking contacts, like Subway. I can't get off their mailing list. I just block the contact. Taco Bell, like on all these scammy things. And now I'm getting notifications that other things were from the same lists that I've blocked. So that's kind of cool. I'm catching a whole bunch of scammers that way. And I never knew how to do that with my emails. And another thing is when they joined, and this one I thoroughly agree with, because bots will join and 2 days later have 10 followers and they will be all up in someone's shit. But when you click on the name, and all you have to do is hover over the name, and it'll show you how many followers they have when they joined. And just don't give them any credibility. Don't talk to them. They're just not real. Their job is to find out what annoys you so they can continue doing that. So when you fight with them, you tell them what annoys you, and that feeds them. Just don't do it. Just block them and go on with life. Who do they follow? I've done that. Like, who is this account? We did that. I had a Afghanistanian guy, Afghani male, tell me he was in real trouble, and I looked at his followers, and it was 100 MAGA accounts. And I was like, oh, snap, and I didn't fall for that scam. But he wanted to be on our show, and I was like, no, because you are MAGA, So that's a good way for me to separate. And then finally, you're going to see a lot of stuff about Ukraine, a lot of horrible things, and you need to take a break from this stuff.
Yep.
I think that's important. And
absolutely.
I've been ignoring the news based on that. I'm sorry. If you're going to show me more stories about the refugees, they're all the same story and they're all horrible and I hate them all, but I hate it. They sound the same to me. I'm sorry. It's just you're grabbing any Ukrainian to be on your news media, and it just irritates me. It's like, let's get somebody, not let's solve their problem. And media is horrible that way. Any closing statements? Any recommendations? Any words of positivity?
Get outside. If you can, get outside. Smell some air. Especially after the last 2 years, we've all been trapped inside. We've limited ourselves. Some of us have, and if we've got to get a break from screen time. Realistically, I'm going to be doing that this afternoon.
Love that.
And it's important for your mental health, and especially in trying times, to make sure you're getting away from the screen and getting and getting some good quality time in for yourself.
And I love that advice is coming at the end of our 2-hour live stream. I heard some great advice on a TV show that I picked up on. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called The Owl House. And Jeffrey, if you get a chance, watch it. Like for me, anime is the first couple episodes are all set up and plot settings and all this stuff. And if I can get through that, I'll enjoy the show. And I never know what I'm going to like, but this show is just adorable. So if you get a chance, watch The Owl House. But there was this scene where, you know, that one of the characters gives somebody a note and it says, try quitting. It's like trying, but a lot easier. That goes with my philosophy. So try quitting. You don't have to hate everything. You don't have to actively fight everything. You can just quit and go on about your day.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to Public Access America. We love you. I love you, Jeffrey. I love your whole family. I can't wait to find out next week what you did today.
To those who would tear the world down, we will defeat you. This is our moment. This is our time. To those who seek peace and security, we support you. Yes, we can. And to all those who have wondered if America's beacon still burns as bright, tonight we prove once more that the true strength of our nation comes not from the might of our arms or the scale of our wealth, but from the enduring power of our ideals, democracy, liberty, opportunity, and unyielding hope.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbow. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life.
Ask not.
Yes, we can.
What your country can do for you.
I have a dream.
Ask what you can do for your country.
My poor little children.
Yes, we can.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression.
In this lifetime, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
That's how winning is done.
Welcome to Public Access America.
Yes, we can.
Sunday live streams on YouTube.
I wanted to run out of that tunnel for my dad.
On Twitter.
What?
Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Smart Radio Public, and Spotify.
Yes, we can.
Public Access America. History in the making. Making history in the making.
Don't sleep on the newest innovations in wellness, or maybe do. Introducing Force Factor's Somnipure. Only at the Vitamin Shoppe, the new Somnipure line of drug-free sleep aids includes a muscle recovery formula to help you relieve sore muscles and improve sleep quality. Plus, for the first time ever at the Vitamin Shoppe, an easy-to-drink, fast-acting liquid solution with melatonin and natural botanicals to help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up feeling refreshed. Sleep stronger with Somnipure at vitaminshoppe.com or the Vitamin Shoppe store near you.